It's the first time at the Doha Forum that we are discussing Syria as a post-Assad state. For many Syrians, the past year has held both relief, but it's also held a lot of uncertainty. I was actually in Syria just a few weeks after the fall of Assad, and it was an extraordinary moment. It was filled with emotion, with hope, and also with a lot of disbelief. But now, as the dust settles, the harder questions are beginning to rise. You know, what does the day after truly look like? What kind of state do Syrians want? And how do we move from transition into genuine, sustainable stability? To help this discussion, not only in lived experience, but also in evidence, a recent Arab Barometer survey conducted inside Syria. You know, for years, reliable public opinion data from Syrians has been scarce, or it's just simply been impossible to gather. So it's truly really important data that we're going to be dissecting today. So, you know, it's incredibly important to have this fresh insight into what citizens in Syria are actually prioritizing during this fragile transition. And there are three main findings from this data that we're going to be focusing on today. You can see the entire data online, but we'll be focusing on three main themes. The first being the economic pressures that now overshadow the security pressures that Syria has been facing. The second is that a clear majority of Syrians express a preference for democracy as the most appropriate system for their country. And the third, that Syrians are very clear and they draw sharp distinctions among foreign partners. And you know, they really are clear about how they want the international community and foreign powers to be involved in Syria. And these insights, they raise important questions for policymakers, for civil society, and Syria's international partners. You know, what do these preferences that the Syrians have been clear about mean for designing power-sharing arrangements and political institutions in the new Syria? How should justice, accountability, and social cohesion be approached? And how should reconstruction and the role of external actors be structured? So those are the main things we're going to be discussing today, and we have a very distinguished panel to be discussing it with. Her Excellency Hind, the Syrian Minister for Social Affairs. We also have Dr. Saleem, who's the head of Planning and Statistics Authority of the Syrian Arab Republic. Mr. Tareq Talahma, the head of the Damascus Office for the United Nations Special Envoy for Syria. And my friend Michael Robbins, who's the director and co-principal investigator of the Arab Barometer. And I've left introducing you to last because I want to speak to you first. First of all, give us an idea about the methodology. How did you guys conduct the survey? How did you come up with all this data?
So thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here and sharing the survey. As you have indicated, this is the first time we've ever been able to do a survey of Syria, and so we're very excited to add this to our data set. Arab Barometer has been collecting public opinion data for the last 20 years across the region. We have essentially covered almost all the Middle East and North Africa at this point, and so it is wonderful to have Syria in that data set. The way we do our surveys is to go door-to-door, face-to-face, and so that's really important. We have done experiments, and when people are asked things over the phone, when they're asked things in other methods, they don't necessarily give the same answers. We've done experimentation, and in some cases, 1 in 6 people give answers that are more favorable towards the authorities. And so what we want to do is give people privacy. So what we did is we went to all 14 governorates of Syria. We went to both urban to rural areas, and we divided that up. And everyone in the country had roughly an equal probability of selection. So what that really means is that scientifically we can make assertions about what the data show. That we can say within the margin of error of plus or minus 3 points, this is what Syrians really believe. And so we included Syrians who were living in their residence. We included Syrians who were in internally displaced camps. And we did that everywhere. So we did this with a huge team. So our director of research, Salma Shami, led this. She went to Damascus for 2 weeks, trained the whole team at RMT International, which really worked hard on this survey. They have done surveys before, but this was the first time we've done a survey with them. And the person we worked with there, Tareq, was really, really influential in helping us do this. So he trained the team of 29 enumerators who went out to all different parts of the country and then sent the data back to us. And so it was really a huge effort.
And give us the main points, draw us a picture of what Syrians are saying, their main concerns at home, how safe they feel, how they view the new political system, and how they see foreign powers.
So this is a really important question for us, was trying to understand this. We took our normal questionnaire, which we ask across all the countries, and then also tailored it really for the Syrian conditions. So what we really found, first of all, is that the economic situation is really, really troubling. That 86% of Syrians say they can't really afford their needs at this point. That's not surprising, given the challenges from the previous regime and how the sanctions regime that was on Syria. But people are really struggling. And 73% say that they have actually run out of food and not had money to buy more. It is a really, really difficult situation for Syrians today. And that's something that we see is that, inflation, poverty, and job creation are really what Syrians say is the biggest priorities for the government. So there is a need to really improve the economic conditions of Syrians overall. What we also see then is a need for, there's also challenges socially, that a lot of Syrians are saying right now that there is a need, the challenge of intolerance is really a problem. That 78% say this is really something that is dividing Syrians at this point, and really the need to think about transitional justice. How does we talk about the crimes that were committed in the past, what has happened in Syria, to bring together and really unify the country as a whole. And so this is another key theme that comes out of the survey. One of the things that we do see out of that is really a call for democracy, that people say that they need inclusion. Although the government right now, people are saying that is responsive to their needs, it is a way to find the institutions that would actually ensure that this continues for the future. And so the idea that democracy is something that people want, that they want to see how this actually works out, and to really increase that voice that they have in government is a really important aspect. But we also see a need for foreign actors to come to help Syria along, and that people are really actually open to this, that only 4% said that they don't really want any type of international assistance or aid or connections, and that there are a lot of partners that we see that have very positive views, that Syrians have a very positive view towards Qatar, they have it towards Saudi Arabia, towards Turkey, towards a number of other actors, including the European Union and the United States. And so there is a large coalition that could come in with the support of the Syrian people to really help the transition and make this positive.
And we'll go through those different points, theme by theme. I'm going to start by talking about the economy. And I'm going to start by asking you this question, Your Excellency, first. The survey shows a really stark social reality. It says that nearly half of Syrians say that sometimes or often they ran out of food in the last 30 days before they had money to buy more. It also says that 70% see socioeconomic inequality as a really major problem. From where you sit, how are you dealing with this? What are your thoughts on it? And what does this level of insecurity and perceived unfairness mean for social cohesion in the country?
First, thank you for having me. What you see today with this economics feedback is what's the reality in Syria. And of course, I have to tell you, when I took this responsibility, I know it's bad. I know it is not too good, but I didn't think that it is a death clinic. This was a very bad situation in Syria, and this is because of the corruption, because of the war, because of everything we all know and share. Now, what we can do about it, and this is also when you have a ministry, it's two ministries, social affairs and labor, and of course women lead this. Immediately we have to think about solution, immediate solution. So we start now a program in cash transfer money, so we can cover 5 million people, Syrian people, the most vulnerable in Syria. This is number one. And we've been working so hard to get things done. And also we just created also a job platforms for people so they can start like creating jobs, and we start thinking and start also vocational training for people to start working, because we know that work jobs can be also a good solution. And get prepared, even if we don't have now enough jobs in the market, but at least now lifting the sanctions and all the progress, at least the Syrian people can be ready to start getting jobs. Number three, what we did, we're now working on social protection. We just created a government committee, include all the ministries who are concerned about social protection, which is health, education. We have also everything. So we put the effort, all the government together, plus civil society. Let's not ignore the role of civil society today in Syria, which is a big role they're playing now. And this is also part of the social cohesion when you talk about. Social cohesion is the core essential things in Syria today. Without social cohesion, wherever we have any programs, any great ideas, any creative ideas, if we don't social cohesion, we will fail. So this is part of the social cohesion, having civil society working together, having the dialogue between government and civil society, and we're trying our best here. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Before I go on to the next question, can I ask our wonderful organizers to please put the timer on for me? Someone changed it and I need to keep track of time. So I want to come to you, Dr. Anas, next. And if everyone, if you'd like, this is going to be in Arabic, so you can put your translation headsets on while I ask my question. What I wanted to ask you is that the survey is unambiguous. The economy is the top concern for Syrians, ahead of even security. You know, people point to inflation, lack of money, the difficulties of accessing healthcare, that they are dissatisfied with the government's performance on jobs, wages, and inequality. How are these findings shaping your immediate priorities as a government in terms of where the state intervenes first?
Good morning. At the outset, I would like to thank the state of Qatar and the organizers for their hospitality and for their organization. We appreciate the efforts deployed in this
العمل الإحصائي التي نقوم بها في سوريا.
In the survey, and it intersects with our results as it emerges and reflects the needs of the Syrian population. First of all, I would like to concentrate on the economic and security aspects. The Syrian population has the right to seek their economic needs, and when we say that the population today is thinking about the economy before security, this is due to the fact that the population has found part of the security that allowed them to seek for the or to search for the to respond to their economic needs. Before, they were afraid to go to the roads and being kidnapped by the checkpoints. The needs of the Syrian population and the need to search for job opportunities are legitimate. We as a survey committee, we are trying to respond to those needs. To compare the data of 2024 and 2025, we can see that inflation has decreased by 45% between 2024 and 2025. Another point is that during 2024, the proportion of salaries and wages did not exceed 9%, while Syrian or 53% of the Syrian were counting on their salaries and wages as a source of their revenues. In order to respond to the needs of the Syrians with regard to inflation and needs, etc., today we are working as an authority of statistics to build midterm strategies that are based on the analysis of the realities in order to identify the needs of the Syrian population. In the economy, most specifically, we have a midterm strategy we are working on with all our national partners and Syrian authorities. We are targeting 2 points. The results of the analysis which intersect with the survey of the barometer that was mentioned by Mr. Michael, that the priorities today in Syria on the economic level are stimulating the economic growth as a major pillar. And this is being done by providing a responsive regulation environment and by allowing the private sector to invest in all sectors, while the regime was having a hegemony on those investments and was impeding each and everyone to participate. The investment will create job opportunities for the Syrians and will improve the revenues. The second point, which is the major economic objective, is to achieve stability within prices. The stability of prices, which has been clear to each and everyone during the past period by motivating the production and by providing financial tools, have resulted in concrete results. The financial tools have contributed to improve our currency. The currency exchange has improved, and we could save 18 million USD by controlling the exchange rate. Stability in the exchange rate will help solving these problems. Another means that may help us in achieving those requirements is that we are working with a national team to produce a Syrian production identity, and we are including all the Syrian groups in this constructing methodology. We are facing economic challenges, and we are trying to respond to the needs of the infrastructure, poverty, and other aspects. One pillar of this identity is to identify the identity of our economy and its methodology. We are orienting the strategy on distributing the resources in a very equitable manner. This will reduce the negative indices you have mentioned.
Tareq, next, I want to ask you, we've been talking for the last 10 minutes about the economic challenges that Syrians are facing. There are so many priorities in Syria, but the biggest one is people wanting to feed their kids. So tell us, what are the biggest challenges on the humanitarian front?
It's to me, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, it's an honor to be with Her Excellency, but the rest of my colleagues, we were here last year, and we never thought this moment will translate where we are today. And let me join my colleague also to thank Qatar and the other, not only Qatar, Qatar for hosting this, but all the other member states who stepped in to support Syria through the last 14 years. I don't think I'm in a position to talk on behalf of the international community, but before getting to that, I just want to say a few words because I really believe there is something to clear in the air. Mm-hmm. The last 14 years, the international community were up and down. And I believe before we are proceeding as business as usual, we need to do a reflection on these last 14 years. Because the situation in Syria as of today, and I'm looking at it from not only the humanitarian, I used to be in charge of OCHA for the Middle East, and I've been engaged on this file. I think we need a big rethinking, not only as a UN, as an international community. We are proud of many things we have done, but also there are many things which we need to rethink and reapproach it with a different way. And before speaking about the technicalities and about what we are going to do, if this is not our starting point, then we are heading in the wrong direction. And the reason why I'm saying this because I've been in this file for 14 years. I was in Homs 2012, 2013, when Homs was on the peak of this. The biggest problem Bashar al-Assad have done in 2010, which we all need to remember, he thought if you are going to fill the stomach of the Syrians, you can deprive them of their political and civil rights. So for me, I would go back to why the people in 2011 went to the street. Well, they went for two words, dignity and freedom. So for me, from where I stand today, I mean, there are a lot of technicalities we can talk about, inclusiveness, which we will stand to continue to support that and many other things. But this transition period, unless it's going to meet these two things, then we are really going to back to question. The Syrians has paid the blood, and there are still hundreds of thousands of Syrians who are missing their families, who wants to achieve these two things. And this is where I reflect now on the role of the international community. I'm not coming from the lecturing part of the international community, because there is a lecturing part of the international community whereby they want to scope on the Syrian file as, you know, let us tell you how to do it. So the first thing from the international community is to come to a recognition. This is not about lecturing. This is about working with the Syrians. Today, if we are really serious about the transition, we should never create a parallel system. I mean, creating a parallel system in any place in the world is a recipe of failure, not only for us, but for everyone. So that's my first one. The second thing is that it's not a compromise between advocating for the right thing and kind of making the right interventions. Yes, for example, in the UN, we have the global norms. The global norms is not going to be designed for Syria. I mean, these are universal ones we will continue to speak about, and maybe sometime we'll have our disagreement with the government, with others, but the intention behind it is not exposure. If we are really serious about building this relationship in a healthy way, we will continue to talk about anything the Syrians wants to talk about as it's part of our mandate, but with the intention of making things better rather than, and engaging and influencing rather than coming with the attitude of exposure because we want to score political points. That is not the time to score political things. So I would say we have all the ingredients as we stand today. Of course, I can list to you now 5, 6, 8 things which maybe need to be addressed. I think these questions were asked to the president yesterday. So I really am kind of, the only thing from our side is that there are many priorities we need to work. The first one, the stability in Syria will never happen while what's happening in the south continue to happen in the south. A lot of people are so disappointed from the UN. You are just making statements and you are really kind of, does not impact the day-to-day life of the people. But no one should accept what Israel is happening in the south is the norm. That is not the norm. And if the UN is not going to talk about it, and I know the Syrians always like joke about me, are you concerned today, and all these kind of things. Yes, we are concerned, and we will continue to concern because the word concern has a political and a legal narrative behind it, which is actually reminding the international community of their obligation for the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Syria. And then I would come to many other things which is related to the civic space and many other things and the issue of inclusiveness, which I have to say, these are very legitimate. But as I said, we will work with them through a structured way along with our partners, civil society and the government, rather than creating our parallel system. And then I come to the programmatic thing. I mean, every month, the United Nations working with the Ministry of Social Affairs and others in order to support 3.5 million people. We will continue to do this. There are 3 million people between refugees and IDPs have returned back. We'll continue to support that. We have al-Hol, which is a kind of a ticking bomb for everyone. We will continue to support that. But it's about balancing all of this and making sure we are really helping this to move to the next step rather than trying to push it back.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go to the second theme that we saw come out of this survey, and it's on governance, democracy, and trust. And I'll come back to you, Michael. If you can just tell us if there were any findings that surprised you or revealed real contradictions, between high trust in the president and security forces on one hand, or the sense that Syria is still closer to non-democracy than democracy on the other.
So thank you for that. One of the things that we really saw in this survey was an optimism, and I think this is something we've seen before in Tunisia and Egypt, other places like that there really is a hope that people have trust in the president. 80% of people trust the president, 70% trust the government overall, but there are some differences with that within the regions. And so as we look at different governorates in Latakia, in Tartus, and Sueda, there is much lower level support. So it is one of the challenges that we see, I mean, in terms of not necessarily a contradiction, but just the differences, that there isn't necessarily equal support across the country, that in places, in those three governorates, the trust in the president and the trust in the government itself is actually only in the 30s. And so it is something, there is some clear differentiation there. What that really does, I think, end up to is that this kind of idea of this certain areas against other certain areas. But one of the things we did see in the survey itself was that there was a lot of similarities, that even when you looked at those governorates versus others, that the same challenges are really facing them, that the concern about the economy, the concern about how the government was providing services, everything else, there was a lot of similarity there. And there was also a lot of similarity in this idea that there was a need for transitional justice. And so there were some differences in how that would play out in terms of what people would want between those governorates and the others, but there was a need to go back and really look at what was happening before, look at what happened from 2011 to 2024, and to some extent from what's happened after that. And so I think that there is a need to go back and really revisit that. And so I think that people are very worried about this across the board and how this would actually play out. There are some tensions there, but really democracy is something that people, I think, are calling for in this idea that they don't necessarily have it now, but there is a hope that this could be built up in the future. And so what we see is kind of these two pieces. Things are very, very tough right now, but there is an optimism and a hope that the transition will continue. And so far, most people say, the vast majority actually say, and across the country, that the transition is going well, that they're pleased with what's happened, but I really think that the future, this window for, the challenges that the Syrians face are so significant that without addressing those really going forward, that this will eventually fade, like we saw in other countries as well, but there is really an opportunity now. So I don't necessarily see it as a contradiction as much as people saying that, they're hopeful about the future and they want this to continue.
And they're also saying that there's a lot of trust in the government, the current government right now. And so I guess my question naturally comes to you, Your Excellency, is that there is a lot of trust. What's the government doing to kind of take advantage of this window of trust that they have, whilst also addressing the concerns? How are you planning to respond to these concerns that people feel the transition is moving towards genuine democracy practice and not just new faces?
First of all, when people trust their government, this is an opportunity for the government, and we need to build on it. Because there is a trust, and now what are we going to do toward this trust? Trust is to give the Syrian people that we are there to help, we are there to serve them. We're not leaders of that, just leader. We're a servant leaders. We're there to help, to serve. And we have to build on this. Practice, lead by example, transparency in everything we do, credibility. People, they need us to do things because this is the time for us to help and serve them. So everything we have to do is to echo the street. And this is our ministry, is like we have in direct contact with the people, with the civil society on the ground, with the vulnerable people, and we listen to them. Listening, learning, and get them to be inclusive in our work. If we want to change the law, now we have some laws are since 1958. We want to change it. I don't want to go and create my own legal committee sitting in an ivory tower in our ministry and to change the law. I won't do this. I wanted to have everybody in Syria, all the civil society. If we want to change the civil society law, it's not my decision. We have to bring all the civil society together, city by city, going from place to place to get their feedback and what do they want. Once the Syrian people feel inclusive, feel they have the ownership in our decision, this is not our decision. We're there to help them. They're not there to serve us. So this is the way we can build on this trust and we can move forward.
But there are also many areas. I mean, when I was in Syria straight after the fall of Assad, I went to Sweda, and that's an area where there's a lot of mistrust and a lot of tension and fear. So how are you dealing with those communities? Communities
First of all, I just want to, the people of Sweda, the Druze are part of the Syrian history. And we are one people. And yes, there is some mistakes, there is a problem, tension, but doesn't work, doesn't make any things. They are still with us, we have to support them. My ministry, we send a salary every month to our representative there. we still helping this people in Sweden. Why? Because they're part of the history. Yes, there is mistrust because of what happened. Our now duty to build this trust again. We want to tell the people in Sweden they're Syrian. As a matter of fact, from in my ministry, the most important files are run by people from Sweden, women, by the way, and they are doing an amazing job. How do we get them to trust us again? By dialogue, by doing a great work, and accountability. We need to get the accountability, we get to get justice. Whoever commit those crimes, they should go and be accountable. And this is when you tell the people of Sweden and others, this is a country, this is a state, rule of law is number one. This is when you get people to trust you, but not only talk. It's not like just talking, it's just doing. And this is what we have to do, and this is what we start doing. Now, if you know that the government created committee for investigation, and they've been working on this. Once the people feel like, yes, there is mistake happened, but whoever commit this mistake going to be accountable for these crimes, they're going to trust us again, and we cannot, the people of Sweden, they're part of the history, and they're going to keep writing with us the future.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the third theme that we want to focus on, which is inequality, reconstruction, and external support. What can the international community do? And I'm going to bring this question to you, Dr. Anas. If more than 70% of citizens see inequality as a problem, how will you translate it into planning choices, for example? How do you allocate public investment? Which sectors and regions are getting priority so that people can see that the reconstruction is not just benefiting a narrow slice of society?
حياكم الله.
Good day. As a matter of fact, I want to go back to compare between different indicators, between the previous situation and the current one. Indicators about how the mentality has changed in Syria and how we're going to reach justice and equality. So to go back to 2024 survey, we find that the country was in a very difficult situation. If this number has increased to 0.6, where the countries usually consider it an alarming numbers if they reach 1.6. So that means we have divided the society, or the society is divided into two parts, rich people and the poor people. Also, if you want to conduct a comparison between the previous situation, between the Syrian situation, there was also a development disparity between the regions, and the indicators clearly show this disparity. For example, joining for example, the education in some provinces, some 50% and some others 80%. The same for unemployment. So this is why this is something that wasn't only due to war, but it was a political system. It was a regime that focused on inequality and distributing the investments in Syria. Of course, we have many efforts deployed on how we can reach equality and to improve those indicators. This is why the Syrian government has increased the salaries by 200%, and this will increase the income and will increase as well the justice of distributing the wealth. Also, they have formed a national committee by Mrs. Hind Kabawat, and thanks to the participation of different Syrian entities, to draft the strategy of social protection that will also play a crucial role in the issue of justice. At the level of improving the indicators of justice and equality, we are working with the Ministry of Local Authority to build plans, and we've started working on these plans by the development integrity in different provinces. And this is how we work on different policies in a way that serve every region and their people and improve the proximity between the Syrian people. Thank you.
Visit to Syria last week, if you can tell us how it went, and also if you can touch on what more the international community can do to support Syria through what is obviously, a very kind of turbulent process. And then after that, I think I'll open up for the last few minutes for questions from the audience, but please go ahead.
Do you hear me? Yeah. I just want to touch in 30 seconds on the issue of the trust. And I think there is no doubt that through every interaction I have, there is a divergence of opinion about. But the majority of the Syrians are in support of their government. And I think the bigger question, are they supportive because what the government is doing right, or they are supportive because what the regime has done bad before? And I think that is really very important, because it's very important for the authority, if they want to keep the momentum on the future of their popularity, it's now about what they are going to deliver, right? I mean, of course, we all have the grievances from the regime, and many people want alternative, whoever, doesn't matter. But it's very important for the authority to think about that, because for me, that is critical.
But isn't that finding very key? We trust the government right now.
Absolutely.
But we also know we want a democracy. But basically what they're saying is we're going to give you space to do what you can in what is a very difficult
Absolutely.
time.
And for me, I really think this is critical, because in any transition I've been to, I mean, the first period is very critical, right? It's very shaky, and there are a lot of doubts, and I really kind of credit the Syrian people of coming solid behind, wants to move for the future. Coming back to the Security Council part, I mean, I don't want to speak in behalf of the Syrians, but the Syrians have some experience with the Security Council for the last 14 years, right? And this experience, I want to use a very diplomatic word, which is, did not meet the expectations, right? And I've been almost to every crisis you can think about in the last 25 years. And I have seen how the international community can be a decisive factor on the success of a transition. I mean, if you look to the research in the last 50 years, transition in many countries has failed. Of course, you can blame it to many things related to domestic issues. But when the international community is not stepping in order to support that, then we are really kind of missing an element here. The security, I mean, this is the only time in my career where I don't really go back to think there is polarization on the Syria file. Even the countries which you would think about, put Israel aside. Israel is a spoiler here, right? But the rest of the countries, even with some diversion on the Syria file, I think they are coming to some conclusion that they need to move this file forward. So for me, the visit is not only a visit. It's a kind of show of solidarity and also kind of sending a message. Mainly it came after 1 year of the collapse of the regime. And for me, that is really kind of sending a message. But also kind of reassuring the Syrians that this platform, which is, to be frank with you, peace, security in the world is not with us. It's with the Security Council. And a lot of people confuse us about what we can do and what we cannot do. But for me, the Security Council to come to Syria and the government giving the space to everyone who wants to send a message to the Security Council to come, sit in front of them and deliver the message, which maybe the government is not happy with it or have an issue with it, for me, is putting the bar so high. So I was in the most kind of sensitive meetings, whereby you have the Syrians coming from all diverse backgrounds, delivering very divergent of opinion about one thing, but they are saying in the end, we are Syrians and we want to live together. So for me, that was kind of two things in the same time. The space is there, and the Syrian government is willing to give this space, but also the people who attended are using this space in a very responsive way. And for me, that shows a maturity, mainly in the civil society part. But also, I was in a meeting where the Bedouins from Sweden, the Druze from Sweden, the people from the coast, the Sunni from the coast are in the same meeting talking to the Security Council about their grievances. And still disagreeing on many things, but leaving the meeting saying one thing: we want to live together. So for me, it's not only, and also it's sending a message to some of the neighboring countries that the international community is so united about the sovereignty and the territorial. I'm really sorry coming back to this, because for me, many other things we can discuss about. But if the South is not being stabilized, then we are really going to have a lot of hopes on this process.
Your Excellency, I could see you wanted to respond to
thank
that.
you, Tareq, for this. I just want to add one thing. When this is happening, everything is getting, we know that the Security Council is coming to Syria. There is people called and they say, okay, what's going on? Are we, the Minister of Social Affairs, are you going to interfere with their messages? Are you going to control? I say, absolutely not. Our government say it very clear. There is transparency, they have a freedom to say whatever they want, and we're supportive of the civil society. Did we interfere? Of course not. Did we were happy about this? Yes. This is showing this new Syria we want. Government, civil society, there is trust, we want them to participation, they want to say whatever they want. All what we want is to support anything they want.
Thank you. I'm just going to take two questions. One question, sorry, or two very quick ones, and we'll get very quick answers. Okay, so I'll take a question from the gentleman here at the front and the gentleman there at the back. Please keep them brief and quick because we are running out of time.
Well, thank you very much. Ben Phillips from Paris as a lawyer. I have a question in relation to investment in Syria, because when you see investments like money flowing in, usually it also has a direct impact on people, creating employment, etc. Last investment treaty signed by Syria was with Saudi Arabia following the suspension of the sanctions by the US president. So my question is, what's the vision or the plan to encourage, investment in Syria, attracting, foreign companies, having, money flowing in, having impacts, on creation of employment, and to basically promote a new economic future for Syria? And the question is addressed to the entire panel. Thank you very much.
Question?
Yeah, hi, thank you. Hani Khabbaz, the Director General of Syria Recovery Trust Fund. My question is really to my friends and colleagues from the Syrian government. It's more of, if you could tell more the audience, because we've read the study, and I think it's absolutely correct findings, but maybe there are three things that the Syrian government could work on. One is communication, internal communication, talking to the people about things that you're doing. Second is, and that basically also means improvement on transparency on decision-making, investments, and so on. And the third, on the justice and transitional justice, that would also address the grievances of people in Syria, but also grievances of the Syrian people that suffered over the past 14 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know there are so many questions, but what I can say is they'll come out and meet you at the coffee area after the session, and you can ask them firsthand. But for now, if I can get a brief, I'm going to go to all of you, actually, just to do a quick sum up to end the session. Is it okay if I come to you first, Your Excellency?
And the first one?
Yes. Or would you like to? Yeah? Okay. Michael, would you like to do a quick sum up?
Sure. I mean, so these are great questions that I think really hit at some of the challenges that they're facing, that there is a need for investment. It is something that we see people are wanting to do. I think in terms of what you're hitting at here with communication, it is something that's very important, that there is a lot happening that the Syrian government is pushing, but it is a need for communication, particularly some of the governorates that don't feel that they're necessarily as included. But I think the thing that we really take from the survey is the optimism. To hit it what Tareq has said here is that people really have seen the experience the last 14, 15 years. I mean, that essentially that they don't want to go back, they want to go forward, and that really revisiting that, thinking through what has happened, trying to actually come to grips with that, but then writing a new future is what's key. And so as long as the government really listens to the people, make sure that it is taking that into account, as has been said here, I think that there is a potential for a very bright future.
Anas, I'm going to come to you next. Taking you by surprise, but...
حياكم الله. سأجيب على
I will talk about the investment side, and Her Excellency the Minister will talk about the internal communication with the people and increase the trust. Concerning the investment, Syria is open with these to all the investment opportunities and is receiving the investment opportunities from all partners and all investors, the governments and individuals. Syria has worked on establishing different committees, the different trusts and funds concerning the investment, and also there are efforts, common efforts deployed through our work. We're working on different strategies and plans that are medium term. In Syria, we focus greatly on the market economy, where we give the private sector their role in the investment, and through discussing the plans is clear, and of course all the investments that the private sector can play will not be the work of the state and will not intervene, and this will help the Syrian economy going towards a new reality, towards a new openness. Besides, through the plans of local economy that we work with different organizations, and the issue of the trust also that I will leave to Her Excellency the Minister is a crucial part to work on strengthening the investment environment and to attract the investors as governments and individuals of Syria. Thank you, Tareq.
Yeah, I mean, look, how much we are making successes as international community of what's happening today. Look to Sudan, look to Libya, to look many other places. Syria can be a success story where we need it as the Syrians need it. So for me, and this is my appeal to my colleagues, that we need to be proud of something is gonna potentially be a successful story here. And I don't say we want to take a credit, but at least we need to be proud, or at least change a chapter in the relationship by joining this. And I'm not saying this because we are gonna be the shadow of the government. As I said in the beginning, I mean, we have the global norms. These global norms Syria is part of. We will always have our dialogue with the government, but as I also said, this dialogue is not for exposure. This dialogue is mainly to make sure that we are supportive. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you so much. And Your Excellency, your final word.
Yeah, first, thank you for the survey. But I need to tell you, we're here today because of the sacrifice and the suffering of the Syrian people. That's why today we're here, and we have to listen to them, and we have to know what exactly they want. Transitional justice, they want us to fight the poverty. They want better education for them. Our job is to listen to them, to give them what they want, and for us, always think about the glass half full. In less 1 year, we were in Damascus talking about strategy to fight poverty. We're there to talk about transitional justice, talking about inclusivity, talking about multi-faith, multi-ethnic group. This is the new Syria. So yes, it is hard. Transition is not easy. Post-conflict is not easy. But can we fail? Absolutely not. Are we going to succeed? Yes, Tareq. We're going to be a very successful story, not because of us, because of this Syrian people who I learn every day, resilience from them. I learn from them what is commitment, what is the love of their country. Who am I? I am their servant, His Excellency, a servant for the Syrian people, because you know what? They deserve it.
Thank you so much. And I mean, on that note, there is so much that has been destroyed in Syria, so much that has been fragmented over the last decade or so, and you guys have a huge responsibility at hand. So I hope we all reconvene next year with a positive story on Syria. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to my panelists. Thank you.